right, it is Monday. None of us want to be here.
Not a single one of us.
But at least it is Ric Flair's 70th birthday.
Wow.
Woo!
Woo!
Welcome to The Sweat, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Emerson. She's Jessie. So, what is on the menu tonight, young lady?
Well, we've got the fantasy impact of the NHL trade deadline, some of the betting odds as the PGA Tour kicks off its Florida swing. Did you get that? And lots of basketball.
Lots and lots of basketball. I like the menu you have there, by
delicious.
the way. An 11-game slate, by the way, in basketball. Let's start there. Here's our panel. DK Live's Pierce Dietrich and Gary and Thorne. And we're playing a little game called Pick and Roll.
All right. You know the drill, picking between two options at each position. So Steph Curry is 9,300 against the Hornets. Or you could jump down to Ben Simmons, who's a good amount less. He's only $8,000 against the Pelicans. Who would you take between the two, Garion?
I think I'm just going with Ben Simmons here. It almost kind of feels like cheating just because Joel Embiid's not playing. And, you know, that's the knock on both these teams. There's just too many premium quality usage rates and high scores that it's hard to differentiate sometimes or know who's going to have the big game. But with Embiid out, it really kind of simplifies things. And Simmons' usage rate has gone from about 21.5% to 25.5% when he's playing without Embiid. And across the last two games specifically, he's taken 36 shots, which is the most he's had so far this season in consecutive games. There's a chance Steph just goes off. He has one of those 60-point nights in him and every single time he takes the court. But I have to just go with the floor Ben Simmons here.
Pierce, he's $1,300 less than Steph Curry. There's no Joel Embiid. Do you think you have to go with Simmons?
No, you can play the narrative here. Steph Curry playing his first game back in Charlotte since, I believe, 2016. This is his hometown. He's going to play in front of his dad. What's that?
Since last week.
Oh, were they in Charlotte last week?
For the All-Star game, yeah.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Gosh,
what are you talking about?
Come on, man.
Because it's an exhibition game. So, well, maybe he'll do the bounce pass again. Who knows? Dust that thing off. But yeah, so he's playing in front of his dad, Del Curry, and the hometown people. He wants to show off. I could see him having a big game. And even if he doesn't really have a huge game for his hometown team, he's still got a 25% usage rate, which is pretty good considering it's the Golden State Warriors. Plus 35 minutes. He's facing up against Kemba Walker, not known for his defensive prowess. Kemba's probably going to have to do everything he can offensively to keep the team in it. This game should be close, and if it is a blowout, then I got to believe that it's Steph Curry that blows this thing out. Ben Simmons is a good play, but if you're chasing the upside, it's in Curry in the three-point shot.
All right, Chris Middleton against the Bulls or Andrew Wiggins facing the Kings, both at 6,300. Who gets the Dietrich stamp of approval?
This is Chris Middleton, and I think you got to just take any Milwaukee Buck that you can tonight with Giannis out. Usage bump for Middleton, for Brogdon, especially for Eric Bledsoe. They're all going to have the ball in the hands in the backcourt. They're going to face a pretty weak Chicago team. This is a great spot. Also, George Hill is out as well. I know it's not the biggest bump, but it's just more positive in their favor. And then on the other side of the ball, Otto Porter is out. That's who normally would match up against Chris Middleton. He's going to match up against Wayne Selden, a terrible defensive shooting guard, a negative 194 defensive RPM. So I love Middleton. I love all these guys. It's all Milwaukee tonight.
Who you like, Garion?
Yeah, I mean, again, like Pierce talked about, we're subtracting Giannis Antetokounmpo and we're adding Karl Anthony Towns. It just seems like this is pretty clear. I'll say in a vacuum, these two players have been kind of similar since January. Middleton's been underperforming. If you take out his last game where he went over 40 DKFP, he'd only done it once in his prior 22 games. So it's not as if he's been streaking hot or anything like that, but you'd have to expect the offensive burden in Mike Budenholzer's system goes to Chris Middleton tonight. And I think going up against Andrew Wiggins, who is just one of the more frustrating, inconsistent DFS players that really exists, I'm going to take that floor of him being the number one option with Giannis out.
Guys, LeBron James is the most expensive forward tonight. He's $11,200 against the Grizzlies. Or there's DeMar DeRozan, who's $8,500.
Double D.
Playing the Nets. Who makes more sense, Garion?
Generally, picking on the Nets is a pretty good way to go. Like, some of their opponents' stats are off the charts when it comes to just sheer volume. I think across their last 12 games, opposing teams are taking more than 5 shots per 100 possessions more against the Nets than any other team in basketball. But Derek White's presence is kind of a big deal. He didn't play in their game yesterday against the Knicks, and we saw DeMar go off in that contest. Even if he does play, he's probably capped at like 20, 22, 24 minutes. But DeRozan's usage rate falls from 31.5% to 24% when he has to share the court with an actual viable point guard like Derek White. And I think that's kind of something you have to consider next to the narrative of obviously LeBron just going off and trying to win this game himself. He's got to back up those comments. I understand it. I just think there's a safety in LeBron that I don't see in DeMar DeRozan, especially with his play across the last 2 months.
Speaking of narratives, Pierce.
Well, there's never safety in DeMar DeRozan. So it's just not his game. It's not his style. His shot has to hit. And if he doesn't hit his shot, then there is no floor. And that's really why LeBron is the answer. And I don't really like either one of them. But if you're looking for floor, it's LeBron. He's trying to get this team into the playoffs. He's got the three-point upside. He's got the triple-double upside. And even if he doesn't go completely off, he's got a solid 50, 55 fantasy point floor in just about every single matchup. DeMar DeRozan, on the other hand, he's got to go above average in rebounds. He's got to go above his season average in assists. And then he has to shoot 60% to get anywhere near 50 fantasy points. That's just asking way too much for a guy to do all three of those things. I know he's cheaper, but at that discount, you run the risk of a rock-bottom floor.
All right, LaMarcus Aldridge has not cracked 26 DK fantasy points in his last 2 outings. Will cost you $7,500 in Brooklyn. Then there's Kevin Love, who's fresh off a 54 fantasy point performance. He gets Portland at home, $6,900 price tag. Nice. Who's worthy of landing on your roster, Pierce?
It's going to be Aldridge. And he only played 21 minutes last night, but in that 21 minutes, so he's going to be fresh again tonight, but in that 21 minutes, he had 19 actual points. That's some pretty efficient production. He should be fresh, ready to go. Brooklyn allows the second most fantasy points to centers, and the Spurs need this game. The Spurs are absolutely terrible at the moment, and so maybe you could say the same for DeRozan. Maybe he will step up, but again, if the shots don't fall for DeRozan, he's pretty much toast. On the other hand, LaMarcus Aldridge, much more probability that he's going to get his points, that he's going to get rebounds in a big game. I would much rather lean on LaMarcus Aldridge. Also, they may be monitoring minutes for Kevin Love tonight, and that pretty much solves it right there.
Okay, so that makes you a little nervous as well, Garion?
Actually, I don't mind either of these guys. I think Pierce is right. Aldridge is the better of the two plays, but Kevin Love seems perfectly viable to me. Even if he's capped at around 25 minutes, his price point isn't that crazy. And you look at his usage rate since he's been activated, it's 36.5%. He's averaging 1.66 DraftKings points per minute played in that span. Like, I just think he's been incredibly efficient and efficient enough to warrant that price point at 25 minutes. But Aldridge is the answer in this specific matchup. I mean, you look at Brooklyn, as I mentioned, the opponent numbers from a volume perspective are mind-boggling. Across their last 12 games, they're the only team in basketball giving up, on average, more than 50 opponent rebounds per game. Aldridge should really be able to just sleepwalk on the court for 25 minutes and get a double-double. They've also allowed the most points in the paint to their opponents of any Eastern Conference team. Everything just lines up perfectly for a huge Aldridge game tonight.
All right, guys, Blake Griffin has had 2 subpar performances in a row, but he's still one of the priciest centers at just north of $9,000. Does that make sense, Emerson?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, Lauri Markkanen, who's a lot less at 7.9. You could take him. So who do you like, Garion?
I got to go with Markkanen. Maybe it's riding the hot hand. Maybe I'll regret that later. But I just think he's the archetype of player that I love to utilize against the Bucks. They are a team that is more than willing to pack the paint and allow opposing, especially big men and pick and roll big men, to just try to hit 20-foot jump shots. And that's something Lauri Markkanen can definitely do. He's been fantastic so far in February. He's averaging 26.5 points, 12.5 rebounds. His true shooting percentage is up over 63%. I just think that he fits into the mold of the types of players that tend to really give the Bucks nightmares. Think about Al Horford a couple of games ago. They are more than willing to allow that to take place with how it fits in terms of their defensive philosophies.
Pierce, where are you going?
I'm going to go with Markkanen. Giannis being out's a big deal. The defense for Milwaukee drops. This should be a pretty close game. It means more usage likely from Markkanen, more minutes guaranteed for Markkanen. And if you look at the last 2 games for the Brewers, for the Bucks, they've lost when Giannis wasn't in there. And then on the Chicago side, Porter's out, Dunn's out. Well, I think they're both out. We'll have to wait and see on the official word. That means more usage, more dependence on Markkanen. He's been great for the last 2 weeks, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Basically, a 24 and 12 is his base. You add in the usage bumps and that slightly easier matchup, and he could easily go 30, 15, 30, 20 tonight.
Also, we do have a DK Live update that Giannis, the Greek Freak.
Well, that was already mentioned. Right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
All righty, Jessie and I are going to reward ourselves with a short break right now. We'll see y'all back for some Chaser Fade, maybe peep some point spreads after we look ahead to the Honda Classic. Get ready to set your sights on DraftKings' free-to-play basketball brotherhood contest. It is presented by Netflix's Triple Frontier, which stars Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal, available on March 13th. Now to play, you got to form your own brotherhood here, consisting of 5 players who can hit from deep. Why? Because only 3-pointers matter. That's it. Nothing else. Just 3s. So take your best shot with 5 players from the main slate while staying under the $50,000 salary cap. Now, the more triples that fall, the more points for your brotherhood. It's just that simple. Basketball Brotherhood contest run throughout March, so step back behind the arc, make it rain for a chance to win cash prizes, all courtesy of Triple Frontier, available on Netflix March 13th.
Oh my God. I am really excited right now because this is a first. We have 2 guys on our golf panel. That is not the special part. That happens all the time.
Oh.
But one of them is Jeff Eisenband, who is making his golf segment debut here alongside regular Jeff with the G, Ulrich.
Eisenband, are you okay? You made a weird face.
It is my second,
God.
actually.
I knew it. I knew it when she wrote the script.
I don't like it.
Wow, thanks for mansplaining. No, I'm just kidding.
But I was thinking in my head before this, just like I'm so used to sitting there while Jeff gets yelled at by people in football, and like I'm not going to do that to him right now.
All right. Well, wait.
Say I'm so sick and tired of sitting there while Jeff gives awful advice. But
No, never, Jeff.
Oh,
Jeff
man.
with a G. You gentlemen are here to play Price Check, though, for the Honda Classic down in Palm Beach Gardens, an event that I covered for 3 years before moving to Boston. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email.
Okay.
Jeff with a G. Justin Thomas won the Honda Classic last year. He's the favorite this time around, plus 500. Do you think DK Sportsbook got it right?
well, first of all, I'd like to hear your story, Emerson, as why you didn't take that role in Triple Frontier, but we'll leave that after. As far as Justin Thomas goes this year, I think the DK Sportsbook got this about right. I mean, you look at this field, Ricky Fowler's the next elite player in there, and then you've got like Sergio Garcia coming off like the Tantrum Tantrum thing. He's got a good record here, but after that, it just thins out so quick. There's so many elite players taken off this week, and Justin Thomas coming in with such good form. I mean, people forget this guy is a former #1 player in the world, and basically for the past 2 years, he's been one of the top 3 dominant players, in my opinion. So I think this is completely justified at plus 500. Oh, also he's the defending champion. Top strokes gained approach. The approach obviously very important on a course like PGA National. It looks like a really short price, but I think it's completely right.
All right, Jeff with a J, as we continue our PGA high or low segment here. He's been boomer bust, though. Missed the cut in 2015, 2017, T3 in 2016, won last year in a playoff. So what do you think this year with these odds?
I mean, I think it's right. I think kind of like what Jeff said, you almost want to say, is there a point that the odds are too good, that they're too low? But with this, it's a pretty weak field. Justin Thomas, 3 top 3s this season, 4 top 10s in 5 events. He's been the best player in the world, in my mind, by far. He also lives in Jupiter, just as you know, Emerson, just strolls down PGA Boulevard whenever he wants to play PGA.
Just takes his scooter there.
So then you throw in that he's the defending champion. I think it's not on our list here, but Ricky Fowler's plus 900. They both live in Jupiter. They both can make that same trip. I think he's obviously, the best competition there. But Justin Thomas, it's rare that you have a situation where a guy could be this much of a favorite.
Guys, Luke List took JT into a 1-hole playoff at this tournament last year. His odds to win it this year are plus 4,500. Are those too high or too low? Jeff with a J.
I think it's a little disrespect to Luke List. I think these odds are too high. I think that, you're talking about a guy who as we said, made the playoff last year against Justin Thomas. He's obviously going to come in with that chip on his shoulder. He's top 70 in the world, and we talk about this being a pretty weak field. So to put him that far down, I don't understand why the disrespect. He's not having a great year, but still, come on, give Luke List a shot.
Jeff with a G, is this disrespect?
No, it's too low. I'll tell you why he's not lower, because he's never won on the PGA. I mean, this guy's in his mid-30s. He's a really solid player. He's one of the best ball strikers out there. But, oh, my God, man, like, you have to be able to sink some 4-foot putts. And Luke List, he does not like sinking 4-foot putts. So it's, you know, it's tough. I know he's kind of like a PGA DFS favorite. He is pretty solid, and obviously he was runner-up. He was in great form coming in here, though, last year. He had a short game working, the best it's ever been. I just don't see that same kind of game clicking right now for Luke List. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but, oh, man, for a guy who's never won on the PGA, I just think 40 to 1, or 45 to 1. It's just too low. I think he's got to be at least in the 50s this week.
Sergio Garcia finished T6 at the WGC Mexico over the weekend, guys. He has the third best odds at the Honda. So, Ulrich, do you think his odds should be higher or lower than plus 1,400? He's made all 8 cuts here at PGA National.
No, I'll go with just right. This is a good setup for Sergio. He's done well in Florida. I mean, obviously he's one of the players, performed really good at TPC Sawgrass. I mean, PGA National compares really well to that venue. And you mentioned the recent form. I mean, he had the issue, obviously, but before the bunker tantrum, he actually put up a couple top 10s. And then another top 10 last week. This is just a venue that works for Sergio. He's one of the best iron players in the world. And quite frankly, he's found his form. So, again, you just have to look at this field. Fowler, Koepka, and then what, Adam Scott? Like, I think this is actually the perfect price for Sergio. I actually think if you're going to go to the top of the board, that's probably where I'd start this week for betting.
Eisenbahn, what do you think? Plus 1,400.
I think it's a little low. I think that when you look at Sergio's success, really post the Masters, he's struggled for the most part in the U.S. So I think you kind of have to throw out those European finishes that he's had and just look at the PGA Tour. For the most part, he hasn't done well. Jeff did mention he plays well in Florida. He came in 4th at the Valspar last year. But I just think people are getting a little too excited about Sergio Garcia just because of what he did last week. And you got to look in the rearview mirror at some of the things he's done in the past. And again, it's a little bit of a struggle for Sergio in the U.S.
Guys, Gary Woodland had a nice final 2 rounds this past weekend to finish T17. He's got plus 1,600 odds to win this weekend. Are those odds too high or too low, Jeff J?
I've gone back and forth on Gary Woodland here, and I'm going to say that they're too high. And so, you know, Jeff brought up the kind of winning on the tour before. Gary Woodland has 3 wins. Technically, one of those is an alternate event. But you look at what he's done this year in 5 events: a 2nd place, a 7th, a 9th, a 17th, and you're adding in a pretty weak field here. I think you got to even lower those odds a little bit. Gary Woodland is a clear threat to win this tournament.
Where are we going on this one, Jeff with a G?
I mean, it's the same story as Luke List. They're too low. It's not quite as egregious, because I do agree with other Jeff that Gary Woodland's pretty much been in the form of his life for like a little while now. I mean, he probably should have won the first event in Hawaii. He just got pipped by just one of the best rounds you'll ever see by Xander Schauffele. So nothing Woodland did wrong there. And then he's just been solid ever since, and he's got a nice record at this event. I mean, he's got a top 5. So again, though, it does come down to win rate. I mean, this guy went 5 years without a win until he finally picked one up in Phoenix last year. I just think when you're getting under 20 to 1 on Gary Woodland, the strike rate just isn't there. So for me, I'd want something in the low 20s at the very least before I'd consider him. Now, that being said, like Eisenbahn said, I mean, he's in great form. I mean, there's no reason he can't win this week, and he's a solid DFS pick. But for me, these odds are too low.
Jeff with a J, we will see you later again in this show for PGA pin placement. Jeff with the G, hang tight. You are back after this break for hockey.
Yay! Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. NHL trade deadline day and plenty of players on the move. The Rangers continue to blow up their rosters. They have sent 26-year-old center Kevin Hayes to the Winnipeg Jets. New York will get the Jets' first rounder, a conditional 4th-round pick, and forward Brendan Lemieux in return. A fairly steep price for a player in the last year of his contract. Hayes gives the Jets an instant upgrade at second-line center, as well as some solid depth on the power play. The Boston native is having his best season in the NHL, 14 goals and 28 assists through 51 games for the Rangers, while averaging a career high in ice time. Hayes should also boost the fantasy value of whichever wingers the Jets decide to put him with. Labeling himself a pass-first player, guys like Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers could see a boost in production with Hayes dishing them the puck. Patrick Laine should also see some time alongside Hayes, which would create a pretty dynamic duo on the Jets' second line. Winnipeg will be in Minnesota on Tuesday, and Hayes is expected to suit up for the first-place Jets.
Multiple NHLers, including a few big names, were on the move today ahead of the 3 o'clock Eastern Time trade deadline. If you follow these two dudes on social media, you know they were all over it. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Ben Zwyman.
So, Jeff, which of today's trades do you think is going to have the biggest fantasy impact?
Oh, the biggest fantasy impact? Probably, I mean, Mark Stone to the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, it just makes so much sense. I mean, they're weak in wingers up front. Stone's just been a solid player, like 20-plus goal scorer over his career. And, I mean, it's just the setup. I mean, signing him or getting in the contract in place for a long-term commitment, it just feels like he's going to be the guy who just settles in quickly and takes on that big role. So I really like Stone to the Vegas Golden Knights. I think that's probably where you're going to see the biggest fantasy impact, in my opinion.
Ben, now it's your turn.
Everything okay?
Hey, it's my turn.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's good. So I really like what the Preds did today. They had a lot of problems at forward with their depth, and they added Wayne Simmons and they added Mikael Granlund. Mikael Granlund was a bit of a surprise, but I like how both of them fit into the lineup. Granlund can play center, he can play right wing, so he's versatile there. Probably see him on the second line with Kyle Turris at right wing, most likely. I think he's got a shot to be on the power play. Wayne Simmons, though, he's played for Peter Laviolette in his career with the Flyers. He just sort of makes sense. He's that third-line grinder that they can bring in. A little grit and jam there. You could see him on power play one with that first line of Arvidsson, Forsberg, and Ryan Johansson, and potentially PK Subban or Roman Josi if they decide to mix up the power play one. But, yeah, the Preds are a team that's just dominant at home. They're cup contenders. They're trying to win now. I think these two moves really solidify that for them, and yeah, I would look to get them in your lineups moving forward. They're not going to play tonight, though, as a note, so don't play them tonight.
Quick follow-up, real quick. I'll start with you, Benny, with the good hair. Is there a trade you did not like, and you could see maybe a player's value actually taking a hit?
I mean, the Marcus Johansson trade kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because of everything that happened with him and Brad Marchand. I don't know how that'll work out in the locker room. I don't know if there's a particular trade that I really hate. Like, it's really just one of those times where you got to wait and see how the players fit into the locker room and fit into the lineup, really.
Jeff, what about you?
I think just from a value perspective, the trade I like the most is Gustav Nyquist to the Sharks. I think that's a really savvy pickup by them. I think it gives them good winger depth. They can slide him alongside like Joe Thornton or something like that, maybe second-line power play. I really like that trade for the Sharks. They basically gave up nothing. The one I don't like is the Jets giving up a first-round draft pick for Kevin Hayes. Feels like a little bit of overpayment, and I just don't know how much it's going to add to their team, really. So I don't like that trade by the Jets that much. Okay.
All right, guys, let's take a closer look at tonight's 6-game slate with another friendly edition of NHL Price Check. Did I just skip Benjamin? Did he go already?
No.
Yeah, okay, cool.
You were great.
Oh, my God, thank God. I was really nervous.
Exhale.
All right, guys.
Exhale.
Steven Stamkos, wow, really? Were you overusing that button? Steven Stamkos is one of the most expensive skaters tonight, $7,700 against the Kings. What makes you think he's going to be worth it, Jeff?
I mean, what makes me think he's going to be worth it is the Kings suck and Tampa Bay is awesome. I mean, they're just scoring at will. It seems like 5 goals every night. They're at home. The Kings are just terrible. So it's the price is fine. I mean, the problem with Tampa Bay is you have to pick and choose between superstars, and I definitely think that you should probably get exposure to some of them. But I think that the way to go might be going with Brandon Point and that line rather than going with Steven Stamkos. You save a little bit of money, you get exposure to the same kind of offense. But I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, I don't really have a definitive answer for you, but you do want to get exposure. So Stamkos at $7,700, it's priced up, but all the Tampa Bay big names are priced up tonight. So I think the price is right.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, in the last 5 games, 4 goals, 6 assists. Do you like him for $7,700?
I'll give you a bit of a more of a definitive answer. I'm not crazy about the Lightning tonight. They kind of showed a little bit of signs of fatigue. Their last game against the Sabres, only won 2-1 in a shootout. I could see this being a scenario where the Kings sort of clamp down. They play that sort of gritty style. I think it could be lower scoring than people think. It's obviously risky fading Stamkos and fading some of the Lightning. Like Jeff said, I like Braden Point a lot more than Stamkos at 7,500. I like Nikita Kucherov a lot. Those two is where I would probably look if I'm going with the Lightning. But yeah, I don't know if we should expect a lot of goals. And their ownership's going to be very high, the Lightning. And on a 6-game slate, you're going to want to, get off of them a little bit. So I'm not crazy about that price for Stamkos. There are a lot of other good centers. Some names, John Tavares, Alexander Barkov has been absolutely insane lately. He's only 7,100. Max Domi and Ryan Johansson a little bit cheaper. So those are maybe better options that you could look at rather than paying that high for Stamkos.
All right, well, Elias Peterson, or Pettersson, tomato, potato, is 6'4" against the Ducks, and his game right now feels as cold as the ice in which he's skating on. One goal in his last 7 games. I don't know if that's good or not. How overpriced has he been, or maybe he's not?
I think he's priced fine. That's Pettersson, by the way. But the matchup against the Ducks, not as good as you think. Since firing Randy Carlyle, the Ducks are 3-1-0. They've only allowed 5 goals in those 4 games, so they've really clamped it down defensively. Ryan Miller should be in net for them tonight. Bit of a narrative he used to play for the Canucks. He's a veteran guy at this point. All he's playing for is, he's a gamer. He's trying to just get the W, so I kind of like that tonight. But yeah, Pettersson is going to be low ownership most likely. His price is good, 6,400. Given the fact that his ceiling is very high, he's a kid that can score a hat trick tonight. So I'd look at him in tournaments, probably not in cash games, but again, not a bad option.
Jeff, we're talking about Pettersson here, not Peterson. I didn't want you to get those two players mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have called you out on a name, Emerson. I screw up names more than anyone on the universe. So, look, Pettersson's fine. Like, I completely agree with Ben. I think he's priced okay, but I just feel like you look underneath him. Max Domi's been playing really well. I like this spot for him, and at 5,800, I think he can go up. And it just doesn't cost you much more to get up to Alex Barkov. So it's not really a guy I'm targeting tonight. He could be interesting. I mean, one thing I'd say, Miller might actually not even be starting. I read a report that it's kind of up in the air. Boyle might be starting. So I think that would give you a little bit of a boost to Pettersson, but something to keep an eye on, I guess, if you're considering that situation. But for me, it's an okay price to take a shot at, but I think there's more value underneath him for sure.
All right, guys, Jonathan Huberdeau has 8 points in his last 4 games. He's only 6,500 against the Avalanche. Is that a good deal, Jeffrey?
I think it is, actually. I mean, that whole Florida first line has been going off. The Avalanche have been playing okay. They had a pretty big win there. I mean, if you look at this price range, I think it comes down to between Huberdeau and Marner. So, Toronto on the Maple Leafs. So it's kind of pick or choose. I mean, Huberdeau and the Panthers a little bit, they're underdogs. It's not quite as good a spot, I guess, but they've been playing so well. I think he can ride it out here. And like I said, I mean, you can play both these wingers too if you want. So I'm in on Huberdeau. I like it. I like the entire Florida first line though right now. So
Benjamin, is this a good deal?
No, yeah, I agree with Jeff here. Again, the matchup maybe not so great on paper, Avalanche at home. But again, the Avalanche aren't a very good defensive team on paper. They don't really have a shutdown line. And sometimes in hockey, you just have to ride the hot hand. And right now, the hot hand is Barkov and Huberdeau and Frank Vatrano on that top line for the Panthers. Barkov's been insane. 6 goals, 5 assists in his past 4 games. Huberdeau has 3 straight multi-point games. You can still get them very affordable, 7,100 and 6,500 respectively. So yeah, if I'm doing like a 2-off, that's probably my favorite play. A lot of lineups will probably be on Maple Leafs, Lightning, Predators, those types of teams. So yeah, you might be able to get lower ownership on the hottest line in hockey.
Well, at that same price, you'll also find Roman Josi, who has delivered to the people, rostering him at least 8 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. Would you take him against the Oilers, and why, Ben?
No, yeah, I mean, Roman Josi is one of the best defensemen in the league. He's rarely a bad play. I mean, until his price gets up in that Brent Burns range where it's like 7,000, 7,100, I think you have to, maybe not have to play him, but he's always in consideration. Highest ceiling of any defenseman on the slate tonight. The Preds are at home where they're fantastic. They're facing the Connor McDavid-less Oilers. McDavid is suspended for this game, so it could be a cakewalk for the Predators. We could see them just roll over the Oilers tonight, 5-6 goals. So if the Predators are going to roll over the Oilers tonight. Roman Josi should be involved, and he should, pick up a couple points. And again, his floor is high too. He's a guy that's going to have a high shot volume, have a lot of block shots, going to skate a lot of ice time. He's one of the safest plays on the slate, I think.
Where do you sit on Roman Josi, Mr. Ulrich?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this slate, I think you got to get him in. I mean, he's got 13 points his last 10 games. He's really come on in kind of the second half offensively, too. He's been super, super consistent. I mean, high ceiling. And you just look at the slate, there's no one else really to compare to him. I mean, I guess you could, Morgan Riley, it just hasn't really been quite as productive. It's hard for me to even suggest the idea of paying up for him. I mean, it's such a good spot. No Connor McDavid. The Oilers suck. I'd start there. There's also some pretty good value plays on defense tonight, too, where you're going to be able to save money in your second spot. So I don't have anything else to add. I think he's borderline must play on this slate, to be honest.
Ooh, all right. Well, slate approved pick time. Who is your lock for tonight's slate, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with the Nashville Predators theme. It's go a little bit out in left field, but with Ryan Johansson, who's a real value at 5,400. Philip Forsberg back up with Johansson on the first line. They got just an awful Oilers team without Connor McDavid. Made no moves at the deadline. This is a dead fish team, and I think the Predators making the couple moves, I think they're going to come to play tonight. I think it's going to be a blowout, so I'll go with Johansson.
Benjamin, slate approved pick, please.
I'm going to go with Andrew Shaw, right wing for the Canadiens. He's 4,800, 30 points in 43 games this season. That's a 60-point pace, or around a 60-point pace. I'm not very good at math. But yeah, Montreal's playing the Devils tonight. The Devils aren't very good. Even Montreal on the road. Montreal's a very good Corsi team, so they're going to gain possession. They're going to have a lot of offensive zone time. Again, Shaw's very cheap. He's with Max Domi. We like Max Domi tonight, Thomas Tatar. So that stack's pretty affordable. I think you can really look to the Canadiens to find a lot of value to pay up at goaltender, because it seems like one of those nights where you sort of have to fit in one of those high-priced goalies. So, yeah, if you're looking to do that, Canadiens are the way to go.
Ben, don't think we did not notice your Scream T-shirt. It's phenomenal.
Scream, baby.
Yeah.
Well done. The movie is now
quality film.
Yep, quality film. 23 years old now, which makes most of us feel pretty old.
Oh, man.
I know. I'm going to let you go on that note, buddy. But thanks for your help. Jeff, hang out because we'll need you for golf. NBA Chaser Fade is next, right after this little treat from Pat Mayo.
In the field at the Honda Classic, Justin Thomas, the defending champion. No player has defended his title at the Honda Classic since Jack Nicklaus in 1978. He's 5.5 to 1, the overwhelming favorite in this field. Then we got Ricky Fowler at 10 to 1, Brooks Koepka 12 to 1, Adam Scott 14, Sergio 16, Woodland at 20, Webb at 25, Cameron Smith at 28 to 1. You mentioned the schedule. This is where the schedule took its beating. No Rory, no Tiger, and even those high-end Euros and internationals that we've seen make this their first start year after year after year, because WGC Mexico got bumped up to the week before, they all either showed up to Pebble or Riviera or Torrey Pines this time around, and everyone's taking a pass. This is the worst Honda field. It's not bad by any means, but this is no different than a Phoenix field.
Well, the Phoenix field this year was fantastic.
But this is basically the Phoenix
Okay,
field.
maybe.
It's Fowler, Thomas, Scott, and Gary Woodland, and Webb Simpson.
I was at the Honda last year. I've said that 5 times already.
Have you? Were you there?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
It was a cavalcade of stars.
We had
It felt
Fleetwood,
like.
you had Norin,
Tiger.
Rory.
Was Rory there last year?
Maybe he wasn't there
I
last
don't
year.
even
He's won this
remember.
tournament before.
But yeah, I know. So it was a ball. I had an absolute ball.
So what are we doing at the top here? Because I have 2 ways that I want to
guy
play.
I like.
There's 2 ways that I want to play it this way. Who's the guy you like?
Not at the very top, but if I had to get involved.
Webb Simpson, as we know, is Tim's one and done. Now, how does this work? Is Tim on a heater? Or is Webb Simpson just horribly undercursed here? Webb Simpson played the most holes through the bear trap in his career without making a birdie until he finally made one last year. I thought that was interesting. He came inside the top 5 and coming off a decent final round in Mexico. So the way that I want to play this is I'm either going to take Sergio and Woodland at 16 and 20 and basically punt the rest of the card. Or there is someone I really like at the top. It's not Justin Thomas, who I do like. You can't
Brooks,
say
then.
It's Brooks. Brooks lost almost 6 strokes putting. It was the 3rd most strokes he's ever lost on the greens in his career. He was top 5 in the field in ball striking, top 5 tee to green last week. He's never really performed all that well at this tournament in the past. I think his best finish is like T29 in 4 starts, as it's like a home event for him. But he's never struck the ball as well in an event before coming in either, that I think we're getting a number here with Brooks. Like, Justin Thomas, the defending champion. Justin Thomas has been playing really well. He's 5.5 to 1. You're getting more than double the odds on Brooks Koepka to win this week. Come on now. It's still Brooks, right? You know who loves hard courses? Brooks. So I want to pull the trigger at the 12 to 1. He's going to be my one and done.
I really like Sergio.
I really like Sergio too.
Last year at Mexico was really, I'm being 100% honest, was the last positive life we saw from Sergio.
Back by popular demand, it's our NBA panel. Pierce Dietrich, Gary and Thorne, and I really hope you guys are up for a game of Chase or Fade because that's why we have you here.
I'll start us off. The Rockets are huge favorites tonight when they host the Hawks. Now, James Harden will play tonight. He missed Saturday's game with a neck strain and flu symptoms. So Chase or Fade, the Hawks managed to cover the 12-point spread. Pierce, James Harden back.
Yeah, I'm going to fade this. But the Hawks, if you look at their last games that they have covered the spread, they've won 7 of those outright. They are not winning outright tonight. It's not going to happen at Houston. Like, I can't see playing a bad team versus a good team that is at home. Even if Harden wasn't in, I don't see the Hawks covering this. The Hawks play at a really fast pace, and that just means that Houston gets more opportunities to shoot threes and extend their lead. There's no way the Hawks cover.
Darian, what do you think?
I'm going to disagree. I don't know what it is about these Hawks. They're a competent offensive team. They create a lot of variance with the amount of three-pointers they also take. I think that's really the main takeaway here. We're talking about two of the most high-variance teams in the NBA. Obviously, Houston's better. They're playing at home. I understand those things. But Houston's also 5-11 against the spread in their last 16 games. It's not like they've been consistently dominant against a public that likes to back them. So I just think this number's a little bit too high. I think that there's a backdoor cover extremely in the works here. Give me Atlanta.
The 76ers and Pelicans have a humongous over-under, like 240.5. Carrying Chase or Fade, the over hits.
I mean, I'll admit that if you had just asked me flatly, what game do you think is going to have the highest over-under on this slate, I would have picked this game, but this number is just too high. I think I have to fade that this is going to hit. You just look at the efficiency of the Pelicans' offense across the last 5 games. Sure, they're running over 103 possessions per 48 minutes, but they actually have the 4th worst offensive rating in basketball across those last 5 games. To get to 240 points, just both teams have to be clicking, and not just sort of like at an average clip either. They have to be 2 extremely efficient offensive teams. I just don't see it happening tonight. Still going to be high scoring, but not this high scoring.
Do you see it happening, Pierce?
No, I'm going to fade as well. If you look at the season long, though, offensively, the Pelicans are top 10 in offensive efficiency. I know that there have been a lot of changes lately, and I'm not even going to pretend to know what's going on in the Pelicans locker room or what their game plan is. We have seen them show up pretty well on certain nights, but I can't trust them. They both play at really good paces, but again, 240 is just an insanely high number, and you don't have Embiid in this game, so there's some guaranteed points taken out right there. Simmons, we could see him go either way if the shots aren't falling. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, and if you look at the Pelicans' offense, they are not nearly consistent. I mean, you get Julius Randle. It's not a great offense. They can hit on all cylinders at times, but not consistently. I definitely got to fade this.
Guys, Lakers are 5-point favorites on the road against Memphis. Chase or fade LeBron, and the Lakers cover Pierce.
I'll chase. LeBron really needs this win. I mean, I don't know if I completely believe that he is trying and he cares about this season, but everyone else seems to believe that the Lakers really want to get that 8th seed into the playoffs so they can get kicked out in the first round. But if they really are trying, then they absolutely need to win this game. This is a winnable game. Memphis hasn't won since they traded Marc Gasol. This seems like the typical kind of regular season LeBron hero game where he goes out and scores 70 fantasy points and basically wills his team to victory.
Garion, what do you think?
Yeah, this seems like a game where tomorrow, we'll be watching First Take and we'll be like, can this version of LeBron lead them into, the finals?
100%. 100%.
It's going to happen. I don't want to play into the narrative too much. Let's just look at the facts here. Like Pierce said, the Grizzlies are just bad. In their last 3 games, they've lost to both the Bulls and the Cavaliers. They lost to the Cavaliers by 5 points the last time they took a court. I think LeBron James is better than the team he left behind, so I think he can probably beat this version of the Grizzlies by 5 points.
Okay, Gary, and the Nets are 2-point favorites when they host the Spurs, so let's chase or fade that Brooklyn covers.
I'm going to chase this. The Spurs have just been bad lately. Across the last 10 games, the only team in the NBA who has a worse net rating than San Antonio is the Phoenix Suns, and they barely count. So you could really say the Spurs have been the worst team in the NBA that's actually a functioning organization across the last 10 games. I just think Brooklyn's competent. Kenny Atkinson's a good coach. I know if we're going to play the who has a better coach game, it's probably not going to be anyone playing San Antonio, but I just think the Nets are a team I can trust, and I don't know what to make of San Antonio right now.
Where do you sit on this, Pierce?
I'm with Chase, and I know what to make of San Antonio. They're terrible. Over the last 15 games, the second worst defensive rating in basketball. Meanwhile, the Brooklyn Nets have the 10th best defensive rating in basketball. It's a bizarro world. I can't believe this is happening. But this rodeo trip for the Spurs has not worked out. This is possibly the worst Spurs team we've seen since the 1997 Spurs that tanked the season to get Tim Duncan. They've been so good for so long, and I think the money tonight is still going to the Spurs because people believe it's the same old Spurs. But it's not. They lost to the Knicks last night. The Spurs are terrible.
Guys, Kyle Kuzma and Mike Conley are both projected to put up 19.5 points according to glorious DK Sportsbooks. Chase or fade, Kuzma outscores Conley in this one, Pierce.
I'm going to fade this. We mentioned earlier, this seems like a LeBron night. He's going to take his team to victory. That means LeBron gets the points first, and Kuzma may be second or third in line. Meanwhile, Mike Conley is the number one guy on that team right now. And Conley on the season, he's averaging 20 points per game, and that's at a slow pace. So tonight he gets a bump. And Kuzma, meanwhile, just 19 points a game. And a lot of those numbers are inflated by playing without LeBron for some time. And this game slows down, so they're playing at a lower pace. It's Conley for me.
Garion, what say you?
Yeah, I got to fade this too. Pierce really spelled it out. Either A, the Grizzlies play at the Lakers pace, and that's a bump for Conley, or B, the Lakers play at the Grizzlies pace, and that's to the advantage of Conley because he's used to playing at that pace. And, you know, we don't have the largest sample in the world here. They only traded Marc Gasol 5 games ago, but Conley's played 88 minutes so far this season without Conley or Jaren Jackson Jr., and his usage rate is 29.5%. Like, he is by far the focal point of this offense when they've got nothing else to turn to. So I think just through sheer volume, he's going to get to this number before Kuzma does.
Kemba Walker and Kevin Durant have point total set at 26.5 when they face off. So let's chase or fade this. Kemba has more points than KD. You are up, Garion.
I'll chase this one. It is tough because it doesn't even seem like Durant has to try to get 30 points. Like, if you were just basing this off of sheer shot attempts, it would obviously be Kemba Walker. He's averaging 23.9 field goal attempts per game across his last 8 games. Like, he has not taken less than 20 shots basically in the month of February. That's pretty impressive stuff. But Durant's just so efficient, he doesn't really need the volume. He doesn't need to be the lead dog. So the Golden State thing doesn't hurt him too much in that aspect. But I just feel like Kemba's got to score 40, 45 points for them to be close tonight. So he's probably going to try and do that.
Pierce, Kemba scoring more than Kevin Durant?
Yeah, I'll chase as well. We've talked about with Zeller being back, Kemba's been a lot better. His usage is up, his minutes are up, but also Jeremy Lamb is coming off the bench now the last 2 games, and Lamb was the other high-volume player on the court with Kemba, so all that usage, well, it's not all going to go to Kemba, but he definitely gets another bump in usage. And then also, if you want to play in the narrative for Kevin Durant, he may take a back seat to allow Steph Curry to have a couple extra shots in his return home to Charlotte in his first real basketball game in a couple years.
Wow, guys.
That was a jab at Garion from earlier in the show.
Please have those showdown picks ready, gentlemen, because we'll need them from you after PGA pin placement with Jeff and Jeff.
What?
Hey, it's Adam Kaufman, your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Baseball fans still on Bryce Harper watch. Nationals out after a 7-year marriage, so Phillies or Dodgers? Phillies or Dodgers, kind of like Finkel and Einhorn, I guess. Well, reports yesterday had Philadelphia ready to finalize a deal north of $300 million for the 6-time All-Star, but LA right back in the mix after a weekend meeting with Harper, and the Dodgers literally backed a Brinks truck up to their spring facility this morning. Let me say that again. They literally backed a Brinks truck up just to maybe unload all that cash. I don't know. Harper has reportedly sought a long-term deal, while all indications to this point have had the Dodgers coming in with a shorter pact. Basically, it's a question between loot and location. Philly is the money, Los Angeles is closer to his Las Vegas home, and who knows if the Giants are going to come calling again, but you'd think Harper would like to make a decision soon. USA Today's Bob Nightingale says Harper's choice is expected by the end of the week. After all, exhibition play already a few days old. Then again, JD Martinez finalized his deal with the Red Sox a year ago tomorrow, and he was a top 5 MVP candidate, so who needs practice? Where's Allen Iverson?
Nickelodeon has Pete and Pete. We have Jeff and Jeff.
Oh.
Neither one of them have red hair.
Whoa!
Oh, interesting stuff you have there. That
Just it's been a tough 48 hours for New York Rangers fans and Matt Zuccarello. So after Jeff was talking about hockey, I just have to toss this up.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
okay,
fine,
man.
man.
We feel bad for
this
you.
is your show.
Yeah,
well,
we feel
anyway,
Great trade for the Rangers.
We feel bad for you, man.
Welcome back, guys. We are going to talk about golf, though, so I'm sorry about that, Jeff, with
It's all right.
Jay.
It's all right.
Condolences, T's and P's.
So basically, we're the following players will finish at the Honda Classic this week.
We call it PGA pin placement. And let's start with Webb Simpson, Jeff with a G.
I like Webb Simpson this week. I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to pencil him in as my champion, but I think he's one of like 4 or 5 players that I'm really high on. It is going to be in the mix. I mean, I know he's fell back a little last week, but his approach game was solid. He's top 20 in the field. And last week's course just does not set up for a guy like Webb, who just does not hit it very hard off the tee. This is a much better venue for Webb Simpson, PGA National. He's already won at TPC Sawgrass. We've seen the correlation between PGA National and TPC Sawgrass. Ricky Fowler, Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia, all those guys have performed well at both. I'm going to pencil him in for a T5 right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was a little bit higher even.
Jeff with a J, he hasn't missed a cut since the U.S. Open last season. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and since this event, he's only missed 2 cuts in all.
Oh!
He's only played in 3 events this year, but he does have a top 10 in there. I think, and I was going to say T5, but I'll move it up to 3rd by himself. Just because I think that Webb Simpson in such a weak field, the way that he plays, as Jeff mentioned, he got hot at TPC Sawgrass this year. Why not earlier in Florida? And again, it's just a weak field. So why not throw Webb Simpson in? I'll go big at 3rd by himself.
Eisenbahn, where does Ricky Fowler finish? Another Jupiter resident? Rolled to a 4-shot victory
another
here?
Jupiter resident, but I just think he lacks the consistency that Justin Thomas has had this season. If you want to compare the two, Ricky Fowler has a T66, a first, and I believe like a 33rd or a 36th or something like that. I'm putting him in at T15. I think he plays well, but not well enough in a weak field. And if you guys saw the shank that he had last week,
that was ugly.
I mean, I do that all the time, but when I see someone do that, I can't put them higher than 15 the next week.
All right, Ulrich, I mean, his short game is not great right now.
Well, I mean, Ricky's a great around the green player, though. But the problem with
really?
Ricky is his approaches are dialed down. I mean, we even saw it in Phoenix in the final round. He got by with putting, just some amazing chip and some composure. But his iron game it's not firing. It wasn't firing last week. It wasn't even really firing that well in Phoenix for a couple rounds. And that's going to bring you big problems at PGA National. I'm kind of tempted to give Ricky Fowler a missed cut here. I wouldn't be shocked if he just had an off week.
Wow.
But he's such a good grinder, and he's actually been pretty consistent in the rest of his game that I still think he's going to grind out the weekend. I'll give him like a T40, though. I just don't think he's quite in the form that you want heading into a course like PGA National.
Missed a cut here last year, so it can happen.
All right, thoughts on Cameron Smith, Jeff with a G.
And yeah, Cameron Smith, he's really hard. I mean, he's been playing great. His approach game is great. He seems like the kind of player that you want to target at PGA National. The problem is he's never played here. And you look at his record at the Players Championship, TPC Sawgrass, just down the road. It's terrible. So I don't really know what to tell you about Cameron Smith. I'm going to pencil him in for a T9. I think this guy is ready to perform at a stage like this. The problem is he just might find trouble on his first time around. It's so easy to find like a big number at PGA National, the bear trap coming down the stretch, and that just might, vault him from in contention to just out of it. So I think he's playing well enough to overcome that inexperience, but I'm still going to say T9.
Oh, okay. Jeff with a G.
That's
Jeff with a J.
I thought Jeff with a G, where he was going was he was going to throw Cameron Smith down far, but to put him at T9, I thought was generous. He's the type of guy that I've been looking at all season and been like, why don't I play you in DFS every week? And he came off the first place finish in the Australian PGA. He's made all 5 cuts. 3 top 15s so far this year on the PGA Tour. I think it matters when you haven't played a course before. So I put him at a T20.
Eisenbahn, Adam Scott is in an absolute groove at PGA National. Do you have some numbers to back that up for me?
Well, I know that he's finished 13th and 14th the past 2 seasons, Adam Scott. And just this year, he's got a 2nd and 7th. He's a guy that's just, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, I honestly thought his career just would never come back. And he's had an outstanding comeback. Just this season, he's been outstanding. I put him in the top 10, T10, for a nice run, maybe up from 13th and 14th the last 2 years at the Honda.
Ulrich, since 2014, we're talking T12, wins the tournament, T14, T13. Holy smokes, man.
He seems close right now, doesn't he? I mean, he had a little bit of an off round at the end of the Genesis, but then he took last week off. So he's another player. He's done well in Florida in his career. Like I said, he's a double winner, PGA National, TPC Sawgrass. It's good correlation. He likes it down here, and I think the change to Bermuda will help him, and I think the week off will probably help. I'm not high enough on him to predict him as the winner, but I'll slot him in with Cam Smith, another Aussie. I'll say they tie for 9th. I think it's a good week to target Adam Scott again. Isn't one of those players I group in like 5 or 6 guys who I wouldn't be shocked if they won. Not going to be my pick, but a top finish for sure this week. I think you got to pencil in.
Ulrich, finally, Graham McDowell.
Graham McDowell's sneaky this week. He's been put up a couple solid finishes on the PGA, and he's one of these European players who has a residence down in Florida. So he's very familiar with this course. He's played it lots. He loves windy conditions, and it's always windy at this venue, and it's going to be windy this year. I think Graham McDowell's sneaky for DFS. I'll put him just behind Adam Scott and Cameron Smith at T12, we'll say.
Okay, Jeff with a J. Got it right this time.
I don't feel the same way. I mean, I talk about Adam Scott I think there was an obvious decline in Adam Scott's game when they changed the putting rules, and then he's figured out his game. A guy like Graham McDowell was so good in the early 2010s and just has fizzled out. And I know he's made both cuts he's played in this year, but he doesn't strike the ball the way he used to. I'll give him the cut. I feel like that's generous enough, and put him in the top 50 this week.
Awesome work by you two. Both of you are free to go. NBA Showdown picks are coming up next.
Hey, it's Adam Kaufman with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Biggest move of the NHL trade deadline, Mark Stone off to the Golden Knights and plans to stick around Vegas. Stone told TSN he's reached an 8-year extension, said to be worth an average annual value of around $9.5 million, and he's only 26. Can't imagine he's going to have any fun in the Sin City at all. I also love musicals and magic, so have a good time. Don't worry, though. Stone does take his job very seriously. The right-winger's enjoyed a strong season, career-high 28 goals, plus 34 assists in his 59 games. The rebuilding Senators received Oscar Lindberg, 2017 first-round pick Eric Bronstrom, and the Stars' second-round choice in 2020. Gotta wait just a little while on that one. Stone joins Eric Carlson and Matt Duchene as recently ousted occupants of Ottawa, wondering what may have been.
For all of you waiting on Mavericks Clippers Showdown picks, this segment is absolutely for you and you only. Pierce and Garion have returned to lend a hand, by the way.
Guys, Luka Doncic has missed 2 games in a row with an ankle injury. He's back tonight. Do you think he's going to look like himself, though, Pierce?
It doesn't really matter. On this ugly slate, you just played the best player, and you don't even really think much about it. If he looks like, I don't know, 3/4 of himself, you're going to be fine. And even if you play him and he's just average, it's not going to kill you. The only way it kills you is if, I don't know, Gallinari goes off, and Gallinari's not going to go off, so you just roster him and you don't really think too much about it.
Garion, is he going to look like himself? Do you want any piece of him in your roster? What's up?
I mean, yeah, like Pierce said, these are 2 teams that basically annihilated themselves at the trade deadline. Like, the inconsistency of the rotations, even just knowing who like the 3rd or 4th man off the bench for these squads on any given night is kind of a mystery. So when you're given a constant and, a very good player like Luka Doncic, all I'm really hearing is like he's well rested, because that's how you have to think about this. He's the only certainty on this slate. He is someone who in the month of February is averaging over 99 touches per game. That is 6 more than second place LeBron James in that same span of time. Only James Harden has the ball in his hands for longer stretches of times during games than Luka Doncic. You just have to use him on a slate like this.
All right, we have Lou Williams, who's coming off the bench for the Clippers, and he's the highest priced guy they've got tonight. $16,500 as a captain, $11K as the flex. Where are you going to roster him, Garion?
I don't think I'm going to roster a lot of Lou Williams. I know he's a very GPP archetype of player, and obviously he could go off in any single night, but I just think where I'm likely going to be using my captain slot on Luka, because it's really the only guy I trust on this slate, it's hard to necessarily fit the second most expensive guy in there right afterwards, especially when you consider he's really not that much more expensive than Harrell or than Danilo Gallinari. And I just think that Lou's minutes can fluctuate so massively on any given night. And the last 2 times he's faced Dallas, he hasn't even crested 24 minutes in either of those games. It's not as if he was even playing poorly in either one of those contests, but I just can't necessarily say he's going to be on the court for 30 minutes tonight. And at $11,000, that's a pretty hefty burden to place on a guy in terms of efficiency.
Pierce, where should Lou Williams be on people's showdown rosters tonight?
Probably not on them. Lou Williams symbolizes how ugly this small slate is. And I would just stay away from him. As Gary mentioned, he's a GPP guy, and more often than not, he's just going to miss. So I would play it safe and keep him off my team. And as Gary mentioned, the minutes are inconsistent. The peripheral stats are wildly inconsistent. And you need the minutes to line up. You need him to get some rebounds and some assists, and he very rarely can get both of those. And then on top of that, he's got to make shots. He's a jump shooter. And on this slate, I don't want to take a risk. Now, if he was cheap, I mean, we love taking Lou Williams on 4-game slates at a decent price when he's GPP play. But when he's the most expensive guy, it's just too risky for a jump shooter to come through for you.
Okay, what other Clippers do you like in this one, Pierce?
Almost nobody.
Okay.
The Clippers just does not seem the place to go. Pat Beverly is not a terrible play. If you think about Dallas, they turn the ball over a good bit, and Doncic will turn the ball over, and Beverly's a good defender, could get a couple steals. Combine that with several rebounds and 10 points, and he can come through for you. Zubac is a GPP play, but it feels like this is a full slate of GPP plays. We don't know if he's going to get 20 minutes. He's been about a point per minute. He's been playing pretty solid, and he's not really facing off against a terrible front court. I mean, Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, that's definitely a decent matchup for him, but you're not really crazy about either of those plays.
Gary, and are you as bullish on the rest of the Clippers as Pierce is?
It's underwhelming. I will say Zubac could be in a nice spot tonight just because the Mavericks do have the roster flexibility to just go super big. We've seen that their last couple of games by essentially starting 2 7-footers, which is not something we see a lot of anymore. So he could just, out of necessity, get a ton of minutes tonight. I'm a little bit higher on Gallinari, I think, than Pierce is. He's had the minutes restriction lifted. I know we didn't see it last night because they got blown out of the water in Denver, but the Optimist says he didn't play a whole lot of minutes, so maybe he's rested for the second night of a back-to-back. But, if you are someone who's invested in Lou Williams because, going back to January 22nd, he's got a 35% usage rate, averaging 1.34 DraftKings points per minute. Gallinari is at 1.28 in that same span without the massive usage rate. So you can really just make the argument he should be the highest price Clipper anyway. So not that you're saving that much, just $800, but I think there's some discrepancy there.
But Garion, who are you putting in the captain spot?
Luka. Luka is the captain. Luka is the captain now.
I like that.
Okay.
Solid reference, movie reference there.
Yeah.
Pierce, anyone else besides Luka?
Luka's definitely the safest, and if you're looking for the second safest, and again, this tells you how crazy of a slate this is, it's Dwight Powell. He's getting plus 25 minutes, 25% usage. You can't find a better player on this slate or more safe play. And again, he's going to go against the Clippers front court, which has bled points to opposing teams' front courts.
Gary, and real quick, would you recommend someone after Luka? Who would be your next choice?
Yeah, I think, Gallinari for me has a little bit of consideration, but I think he's right. Dwight Powell's just settled into a nice, consistent role. And if you can find anyone within these 2 rosters or these 2 rotations that has consistency, that's really something you're looking for in your captain slot.
All right, who are some cheap value plays in this matchup here, Pierce?
Good question.
Well, it looks like Maxi Kleber is going to be back, and he's going to – it's just the question is how many minutes? Are they going to give minutes to Measury? I think Maxi will get those minutes. He's fine. Dorian Finney-Smith, DFS, has been – look, there's just not any home run plays. He's getting minutes. He's getting usage. He's fine. And then if you really want to take a risk, Dirk Nowitzki has been taking shots, and he's not going to get any minutes. But the crazy thing, the other night he got 16 minutes. The guy managed 14 shots, so his usage is through the roof. You're going to be biting your nails when he goes in there, but he's got the upside. But he also has a very low floor.
Gary, and value real quick, under a minute here, and we still need Slate approved.
15.8 field goal attempts per 36. Pierce is right. It's not going to be pretty, but he's only 2K. He only has to hit a couple of these shots to make value.
All right, last one here. I hope you're both ready. Who's your lock for the entire 11-game slate?
Under 40 seconds. You're going to ask one of them?
Garion.
Okay.
Narrative Street. Let's go LeBron.
Oh, I like it. Pierce.
Bledsoe without Giannis.
Wow.
Interesting.
There we go. Fantastic stuff, guys. Slate approved picks. This is The Sweat. Thanks for your help, guys. I'm Jessie. He's Emerson. This show is on weekdays 6 to 7. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. The DK Live app, though, you should go download the DK Live app every time, I think. Do you have anything to add?
Retweet and fave, girl.
Where'd your tablet go? We'll see you tomorrow
My menu?
at 6. Jeez.